Welcome back. We're going to with more conversation. Now we're joined by Siegfried Lange, who's an expert in emotional well-being and an author of Emotionally Debt-Free. Now, in a world where financial debt is commonly discussed, emotional debt remains a quiet but heavy burden that many people carry without even realizing it. Now, in this conversation, we'll explore what emotional debt truly means and how it forms, and now, most importantly, how we can set ourselves free from it to create a more fulfilling and present life. Siegfried Lange, good morning, and thank you so much for making time to speak to us this morning.
Thank you for having me here.
Okay. Emotional debt, how do you define this, and how is it so much different perhaps from psychological trauma or stress? Or are there any similarities?
Well, there are similarities, but emotional debt is basically anything that happened in your past that is impacting your future. These could be positive things, could be negative things. Most people never think about positive things really stealing from their future, but they do in many ways. So emotional debt that is in essence what emotional debt is. It's an experience you've had in the past, good or bad, that is stealing from your future.
That is stealing from your future. Now, one of the key themes in your work is about setting your future free from the past. In reference, possibly saying avoiding it, possibly stealing from your future. What does the process look like in a practical, everyday life?
So we all have things in our past that impact our future in some way. And some of the impacts are even positive. Even negative things that you've experienced can have a positive impact in your future. So, but there are certain things that you are doing because of experiences in your past. And these things, if you do not reflect on them, if you don't deal with them, they put you in a place where you are inclined to either repeat past experiences, or you are behaving in a way that just shows that you are captive in the past. Because when we talk about debt, there's two things debt always does, whether it's financial debt or emotional debt. The first thing is it indebts you to the creditor, right? And in this case, the past is the creditor, and things that happen in the past is your creditor. You feel like you are a slave to the past, really. And the other thing it does is it connects you. If I borrow money from you, we are connected, right? Whether we like it or not. But the same is true for emotional debt. Emotional debt causes you to be connected to the past in such a way that it does steal from your future.
You mentioned that it is always, especially the negative experience from the past, that always steals our future. And can positive memories and attachment also keep us stuck from moving forward?
Yes, for sure. Let me give you a very practical example. We just heard somebody talk about relationships, right? You have a gentleman saying to his wife, "Could you make the chicken like my mother always used to make the chicken?" Now that's going to steal from his future, right? It's causing conflict. It's causing pressure. It puts his relationship under tension. But his mother did nothing wrong. She made good chicken. Right? And now his wife needs to pay that debt. But a lot of people don't understand that. They don't understand that if you don't, that whole thing about leaving and cleaving, right? It's the guys that wrote that text built an extra section to their house to give their son a space to stay, right? So they never had the intent to say it's distance. It's all got to do with emotional debt. Have I written off the emotional debt of my parents so that I can have a healthy relationship with my spouse?
It's quite interesting. You did the same way that you'd maybe thinking that, my mother does a chicken this way, it's meant not necessarily likely to cause a conflict, but it might have the ability to also cause problems.
Yes, of course, of course. It definitely could. Now, there's nothing wrong with making the chicken like your mother-in-law makes the chicken. But if it is a request, we must understand that there's a comparison. It's just like the lady saying to her husband, "My dad can fix any tap. Why can't you fix a tap? What's wrong with you? Are you even a proper man?" He's not her dad, right? And fixing a tap doesn't define whether you are a man or not, right? Should you try, as the husband, to fix things in the house? Of course. But that doesn't define your manhood. As soon as that starts to define your manhood, where are we going with that relationship?
Indeed. Now, you talk about emotional debt like as if it's a system of burdens that we carry. Are there any different, are there sort of different types of emotional debt that exist? And, you know, if they are, then how do you identify which one perhaps that you might be finding yourself in that certain circumstance?
Yeah, so in the book, I define it as different levels. So there's the levels of other people. So if somebody swears at you, that's an other person. You know who the person is. Swearing at me is a negative thing. The example I gave of my mother, that is a positive thing. That's also an other. I know it's my mother. Then there's faceless debt, which is a type of person. And you realize that you have that thing when you're in the presence of somebody that is a certain type of person. It could be a gender, it could be a tribe, it could be a skin color, it could be a certain educational type person. It could even be a system. It could be a size of a person. You could say, I once had a gentleman that said to me, ladies with thin lips are dangerous. You should stay away from ladies with thin lips. But that is typically emotional debt, right? Because he made a lady angry, and because she got angry, she had the body language, which is normally combined with that, which is doing that with your lips. And so he saw the thin lips and he said, hey, danger, right? So that's faceless debt. Then there's the dead, where you also have positive and negative debt, which I unpack in the book. Then you've got what I call God. So a lot of people have a challenge with God. And even my atheistic friends and clients sometimes have a God debt, because it's like a faceless debt where they say, well, why does this happen? This shouldn't be happening. And then there's a personal debt where either you feel indebted to either one of those 4 other levels, or you feel indebted to yourself. So,
now, why do most people think often of avoiding a write-off or letting go of emotional debt, even though they might be aware of them?
So there's many different reasons. Most of them are due to ignorance and wrong teaching. So a lot of people have been taught that if I write off my debt, it means it was okay what people did to me, which is not the case. It just means that you want to be free. It's like somebody setting themselves free out of a jail, right? So I'm not going to stay in jail because I want to prove that you were wrong. Like, that doesn't make sense. But a lot of people do that with emotional debt. They say, if I write it off, it means it was okay what they did. Another thing people often say is, if I write off the debt, then I have to be best friends with that person. If you are in jail, you can't choose who you are in jail with. But if you're a free person, you can set healthy boundaries. And that brings us to another challenge that a lot of people have. We don't have a clear understanding of what is a healthy boundary, right? Most people say a healthy boundary is when you protect yourself. It hasn't got anything to do with protection. A healthy boundary is always a boundary for peace. But there are many different reasons. So sometimes the debt has got a purpose in my life. So I can behave in a certain way because I have experienced this thing in my past, right? So I can be aggressive or angry because I was abused as a child, right? No, I must write off my debt and take charge of my future. What might happen in my past only happened in my past. Even a failure of my past is only if in the past, unless I take it to my future. I'm the one that takes it forward.
Okay. Now, there appear to be that there are also some signs. What might be some signs of someone that may be emotionally overdrawn, even if their external life seems so stable and successful? And many of us might be very good at hiding those pains that we are suffering.
Yeah, I compare that to a cat in a box, right? A lot of us were taught to put those pains in a box and close up the box. We duct tape it down, right? And it's like that initial pain is like a kitten that you've put into the box, if you would bring that out at that stage, it would be a small thing. We could deal with it. But a lot of people then close it up, and it stays in there, and it stays in that box and grows until it becomes a lion. And no cardboard box is going to keep a lion in. The lion then comes out at a time where you're not expecting it, or you don't necessarily want it to come out, normally with soft targets like family, friends, people that will stick around, right? And therefore, we need to encourage people to be on the lookout for incidences where you feel that thing just scratching inside here, right? It's like an emotion happening within yourself, that you have to deal with that as soon as possible before it becomes even a small lion.
Okay. Now, to conclude our conversation, in your view, the role of forgiveness and self-responsibility in achieving emotional freedom, are there any risks that might be associated with forgiving too soon or too easily? And what is the cost of carrying on for something for so long that you possibly even forgot why it even happened in the first place?
So I think the risk of not writing off your debt is far bigger than the risk of writing off your debt too quickly. I am a big fan of writing off debt as soon as it's there, because if you keep debt, you must always remind yourself, you're sitting in a jail, right? And how long should you sit in a jail? It is only your choice how long you're going to stay in that jail. Now, people are afraid of writing off debt too early because they think they're not allowed to have boundaries then. When you are a free person, you can have boundaries. You are entitled to have boundaries. But you should have boundaries that are designed for peace. And boundaries for peace always are communicated and, if possible, negotiated. If you don't communicate your boundary, you're just laying landmines. You're not putting up a boundary. So forgiving quickly, writing off that debt, and then having boundaries, that is how you keep yourself safe and you keep yourself healthy.
Well, Siegfried Lange, thank you so much for making time to speak to us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Now, that was author Siegfried Lange, who wrote a book titled Emotionally Debt-Free, talking to us about freeing your future from the weight of the past, understanding emotional debt, him indicating forgive yourself and forget, write off that debt, and also ensure that you set boundaries so that you can be able, that is, to move forward. Stay tuned. We'll continue with more conversations right here on Good Morning Namibia.